It's not uncommon for gangs to kill the wrong person. Criminal activity tends to attract generally more incompetent people, and a lot of people who are quick to action out of anger or their desire to rise up quick. However, that act first, think later attitude spurred by the stress of street life often goes the wrong way. And when the wrong person gets killed, it becomes a local tragedy that police take more seriously than if another gangster was gunned down. Well, that's exactly what happened with a gang known as the Trinitarios, a Dominican street gang operating on America's East Coast and New England, namely NYC, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. The gang is a large one that is infamous for a lot of the wrong reasons, but none speak louder than the hit on 15-year-old Junior Guzman Feliz in 2018. The hit went wrong, was caught on camera, and afterwards was handled in the stupidest way possible by criminals looking to duck a life case.
2018 day, cameras captured Junior being dragged from a Belmont bodega and being fatally stabbed with a machete by Trinitarios gang members who mistook him for someone else.
On June 20th, 2018, at 11:30 p.m., 15-year-old Lisandro Junior Guzman Feliz left his apartment in the Belmont section of the Bronx to meet a friend. Junior was a sophomore at Dr. Richard Izquierdo Health and Science Charter School, and he wanted to be a detective when he grew up. He was part of the NYPD Explorers program, which is a youth program for high schoolers interested in law enforcement careers. He had no gang ties and wasn't involved in any beef that night. While he was walking, Junior noticed 4 cars circling the area and started to get nervous. He began running, and the cars chased him for several blocks through the neighborhood. When he couldn't lose them, he ducked into a bodega at the corner of Bathgate Avenue and East 183rd Street near his home. He ran behind the counter trying to hide, but the store owner was unsure what was happening and initially wouldn't let him stay back there. And then the men came in. 14 members of the Trinitarios gang, a Dominican street gang, stormed into the bodega and dragged Junior out onto the sidewalk. And then, on camera and in front of multiple witnesses, they hacked him to death with knives and a machete. The attack was so vicious that when it was over, Junior tried to run to St. Barnabas Hospital, which was only a block away. He collapsed on the sidewalk before he could get there, and his last words were that he needed water. He died from a wound to his neck that severed his jugular vein. The bodega had surveillance cameras, and so did the street, which means the whole murder was caught on video. When that video hit the internet, it went absolutely viral. The footage showed a teenager being dragged out of a store and butchered on a sidewalk by a pack of grown men. Hashtag Justice for Junior exploded on Twitter and Instagram, and the video was shared hundreds of thousands of times. Celebrities started donating money. Cardi B gave $8,000, the NYPD commissioner attended Junior's wake, and thousands of people lined the streets for his funeral. And then a few days after the murder, the Trinitarios gang did something absolutely insane. They apologized on social media, according to Junior's sister's boyfriend. A gang leader admitted on Snapchat that they had killed the wrong person. Messages were sent to the family saying things like, "I'm sorry, I know it doesn't mean a lot, it wasn't supposed to be him." The gang had just murdered an innocent 15-year-old kid in a case of mistaken identity and then apologized on social media like they'd accidentally texted the wrong person. Not only had they killed the wrong person, but as stated in the intro, the entire neighborhood was openly standing against it.
Yo, Mara, por honor a mi bloque, Trinitario, tiburones, llegó papá, agresivo, con un machete doble filo.
Now here's what actually happened that night. The Trinitarios gang is divided into different subsets, and Junior's killers were part of a subset called Los Sures. They had an ongoing war with a rival subset called Sunset. And on the night of June 20th, the leader of Los Sures, a 29-year-old named Diego Suero, gave the order to go out and kill members of Sunset. His second in command, 20-year-old Frederick Ten, was from Reading, Pennsylvania, and organized a meeting at Suero's home to plan the job. A crew of 14 men got into 4 cars and went out hunting that night. For those unfamiliar with how gangs like the Trinitarios function, they originate from immigrants, legal and illegal, from Latin American countries who bring the gangs north with them. The gangs are split into their own controlled groups known as cliques or subsets, each holding a leadership panel that answers to higher-level criminals in other cities or down south. These subsets tend to earn their cash from drug sales and robberies, really street-level rackets upheld with random acts of violence. Despite going after rivals, gangs like Los Trinitarios or MS-13 tend to kill innocents even more frequently. And like MS-13, the Trinitarios' weapons of choice generally include knives, axes, and most often, machetes. Although MS-13 is an openly satanic-influenced gang, the Trinitarios are just as violent. Killing perceived rivals tends to be a process which includes getting into several cars a night, going out hunting, and brutally chopping down anyone they see who they believe to be a rival. They saw Junior walking down the street that night and thought he looked like a Sunset member. That was it. That was the whole basis for the decision. They didn't verify anything, didn't confirm his identity, didn't do any reconnaissance. They just saw a teenager walking alone at night, decided he was the enemy based on appearance, and chased him down with the intent to kill him. The problem was that Junior wasn't in Sunset, he wasn't in any gang at all, and he was literally a kid who wanted to be a cop. The video of the murder ignited a firestorm of public outrage, and the NYPD's tip lines were flooded with calls from people who wanted to help identify the killers. Posts from the NYPD on social media were shared over 100,000 times, and people were identifying suspects left and right because the whole thing was on camera, and because the murder involved 14 people, and because half of them probably couldn't keep their mouths shut afterward. The arrests came incredibly fast. Within days, police had suspects in custody. By the end of June, 8 people had been arrested, and by the end of the year, all 14 were behind bars. Some of them turned on each other immediately to save themselves. Michael Reyes became a state's witness, and all his charges were dropped. Kevin Alvarez also cooperated with prosecutors and got no additional jail time. When you're involved in a gang murder with 13 other people and 2 of them start snitching, the dominoes fall really fast. The first trial started in 2019, and 5 men were tried together. Jonaiki Martinez Estrella, Manuel Rivera, Elvin Garcia, Jose Muniz, and Antonio Rodriguez Hernandez Santiago. The evidence was overwhelming because the murder was on video. In June 2019, almost exactly 1 year after Junior's death, all 5 were convicted of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, gang assault, and conspiracy. The first-degree murder conviction meant the jury found that Junior had been tortured before his death. When the verdict was read, Jose Muniz actually smirked and shouted "Popode, hasta la muerte," which is slang for Trinitarios until death. The sentencing came in October 2019. Jonaiki Martinez Estrella, who delivered the fatal stab wound to Junior's neck, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At his sentencing, he tried to blame his actions on drugs, alcohol, and his allegiance to the Trinitarios gang, but the judge wasn't interested. Antonio Rodriguez Hernandez Santiago, Jose Muniz, and Elvin Garcia each got 25 years to life, and Manuel Rivera got 23 years to life. But that wasn't everyone. In 2020, the gang leaders Diego Suero and Frederick Ten went to trial. Even though they weren't at the bodega and didn't personally stab Junior, they were the ones who gave the order. In July 2022, both men were convicted of second-degree murder, and in September 2022, they were sentenced to 25 years to life. The final 5 defendants were sentenced in January 2023. By the time the entire legal process was finished, 13 gang members were behind bars. In June 2025, Jonaiki Martinez Estrella, the man who killed Junior, was found dead in his cell at Coxsackie Correctional Facility in New York at the age of just 31. So here's what we're left with. The Trinitarios gang sent 14 men to kill a rival gang member, and they chased down a 15-year-old kid, dragged him out of a store, and murdered him on camera in front of witnesses in one of the most populated cities in America. Then they realized they had gotten the wrong person and apologized on social media. Every single one of them was arrested, every single one of them was convicted, and all of it could have been avoided if just one person in that group of 14 had questioned the entire thing. But nobody did. And now 11 of them are spending the rest of their lives in prison for killing an innocent child. One of them is a rat in protective custody. Another one is a rat in hiding. And the last one died in a dirty, small prison cell.